Cheese and subscribe.
Hi, kid. Today we are seeking answers to an age-old question, and that is, how old is Santa Claus? And does the elf on the shelf have insider information? After all, the elf does live at the North Pole with Santa Claus the whole year long, except for the time when he's living in your house, keeping an eye on you to see if you're on the nice or the naughty list.
I asked Spike, but he's not talking. Maybe because Spike's name is Peppermint.
Allow me to explain. Our elf on the shelf is named Peppermint Spike Chrysanthemum. It's what you call a compromise name.
I wanted Spike. I wanted Peppermint.
And I wanted Chrysanthemum.
Whatever we call him, he's not answering because he's too busy watching to make sure one of us isn't being naughty.
Okay, before this conversation gets both of you on the naughty list...
Never! Not me!
We want to know, how old is Santa Claus?
He's probably like 1,000,000 years old. Nobody's 1,000,000 years old!
Stop arguing. Chrysanthemum is watching and reporting back to Santa. It's like we have a spy in the house. It was Christmas Eve at the kingdom of the one true North. And the scout elves were working harder than ever, wrapping gifts and transporting the gifts and feeding reindeer.
We've got a hot one, Snow Day!
Holly, a mail sorter, said, bursting through the doors of the mailroom grotto. Whoosh! And Holly handed an envelope to Pippin Snowday. Great name, Pippin Snowday. It was Pippin's job to read last-minute letters to Santa Claus and reply to each and every one. That is a huge job. You know how many of you write to Santa? He ripped open the envelope in anticipation and began reading.
Dear North Pole, my name is Sophie, and I am 6 years old,
Pippin said anxiously. But when Pippin read what came next, his face fell. Not literally, but more like this. It was the same question he'd seen again and again and again.
How old is Santa Claus?
Pippin read with a sigh. He couldn't bear the thought of giving his usual response, which was,
Santa is timeless, ageless, and eternally young at heart,
he said out loud before he slumped into his chair, like so. Ugh.
Just once, I'd like to get to the bottom of that mystery and give a real answer.
So he asked Holly,
do you know how old Santa Claus might be?
Holly pointed to the mailroom elf creed. They have a creed, and it reads,
we will not rest. We'll do our best when questions put us to the test.
So, does Holly know?
No, but you'll find an answer.
But our girl doesn't have it. Grasping the letter, Pippin dashed out the door, hopped on his elf board, and raced down the snow-covered hill. This little scout elf was going to get an answer for Sophie, no matter what.
Wow, Pippin is a really good snowboarder. I wonder if Peppermint is good at it. Peppermint is probably the best at it. Yeah, you're right. He's probably the best.
Well, I do hear that elves are excellent ice skaters as well. Speeding down the hill like a runaway snowball, Pippin almost passed by Barry, the St. Bernard, and Nora, the magical Arctic fox, which happen to be two of Santa's oldest and best friends.
Wait a second, Pippin said. I'm sure those two will know how old Santa is.
Before Pippin could even ask, Barry barked and howled. Yes, I know. He's timeless, ageless, and eternally young at heart. So the little scout elf turned to Nora because he did not want the usual answer. And Nora used her magical powers to whip up an ice sculpture. Is she related to Elsa? Fisbee? Pippin asked, recognizing the sculpture of the Elder Scout Elf. The Elder Scout Elf. He has seniority.
Do you mean I should ask him? Well then, I shall.
And we're chasing down a hot lead in a cold night. Pippin hurriedly jumped back on his elf board like a boss and continued down the hill.
Fisbee is one of Santa's most trusted friends and the first ever scout elf to fly. If anyone knows how old Santa is, it must be
Fisbee. When Pippin arrived at the stables, Fisbee was dropping off a specially prepared treat for Santa's long sleigh ride around the world.
It's an 801 flavor candy cane,
Fisbee said proudly.
801 flavors? What are they? Peppermint. All peppermint,
Fisbee replied. I didn't even know there were so many flavors of peppermint.
Santa loves peppermint.
And there's Sparkles McGee. What a great name, right? Also, Fisbee looks amazingly young for an elder elf.
It's because the cold freezes elf faces. Yeah, Spike told us.
Okay, Chrysanthemum doesn't talk.
But we read it in Peppermint's eyes. Yeah.
Just a reminder, we are all three of us talking about the same elf. 3 names, 1 elf. Pippin giggled, then asked,
Fisbee, how old is Santa?
Fisbee thought for a moment and then smiled.
Well, how old do you think Santa is?
Pippin honestly had no idea. He wondered if maybe Santa was so old that he was around when pirates sailed the 7 seas.
Maybe Santa was a swashbuckler soaring through the night sky with his band of piratey elves and reindeer with an eye patch delivering treasures to the world.
And Fisbee chuckled.
Ha! Santa is older than that.
Ho, ho, ahoy there!
Older than pirates?
Pippin replied. The scout elf could not believe it.
Why do you want to know how old Santa is?
Fisbee asked, and Pippin explained that a little girl had asked a question and he was tired of giving the same old answer. I mean, I get it, right? Sometimes you want a different answer. Fisbee smiled.
Maybe humans aren't supposed to know how old Santa is.
Why?
Perhaps keeping his age a mystery is part of the wonder of Christmas.
Okay, I see your point, Fisbee. Pippin sighed again. Fisbee pointed to the mountains.
Maybe Delshamary will know.
Delshamary? Another fascinating name, but who is this Delshamary? So with a whoosh, 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 Pippin sailed on his elf board, jumping over snowdrifts on his way towards the mountains of enchantment, where the wise and courageous Delshamary dwelled. And there she is!
Pippin!
Delshamary said, greeting the elf.
Care for some pomegranate? Thanks, but not right now. I'm on a most serious mission and I need your help.
I appreciate the seriousness of the mission, but really, have some of the pomegranate. In a flash, Pippin told Delshamary about his dilemma, then quickly added,
I hear he's older than pirates.
Delshamary laughed and was ready to speak when Pippin blurted excitedly,
Oh, do you think Santa is as old as knights? Maybe he had dragons instead of flying reindeer. 8 fantastic fire-breathing dragons full of holiday cheer.
And their names, hypothetically, would have been Twister and Tailswing and Thrasher and Crasher and Talon and Cinder and Whiskers and Ballwing.
I like Thrasher. I like Talon.
I mean, those names are fierce, but they don't sound particularly Christmassy to me. Delshamary couldn't help but laugh.
Would it surprise you to learn that Santa is even older than dragons?
The scout elf's jaw nearly hit the snow.
Older than dragons?
He replied.
Well, how much older are we talking here? 40, 60, 80 years older?
We want specifics. Pippin threw his hands up in amazement, like so. With a sly grin, Delshamary said,
You know, revealing Santa's exact age could make him seem less enchanting. You're not going to tell me, are you? I would, but you seem to be having a lot of fun discovering it for yourself.
Well, it is true. These hypothetical scenarios are pretty wild. Delshamary continued.
You might try speaking with the wise Master Holleran,
Pippin cried out, his voice trailing off as he sped away, fearing he had little time left to waste.
Thank you.
After all, that's right, it's Christmas Eve. We're on a deadline here. Let's go. Pippin smiled as he whisked towards Holleran's home in Luminescence? I'm not quite sure I'm saying it right. Luminescence Landing. Holleran, that Holleran, he knew everything. Surely he'd know Santa's real age. As Pippin rounded a snowbank like a boss, something up ahead caught his attention.
Little Grunt,
Pippin said to the snow biggie Yeti.
where are you off to?
Little Grunt pointed to the small alicorn perched on his back. Interesting, not a unicorn, an alicorn. The alicorn waggled their wings at Pippin.
Oh, you want a race? Well, I can't right now. You see, I'm on some very important scout elf business. But if you come with me, I'll explain on the way.
Way to stay on task, Pippin. This elf means business. They arrived at Holleran's place and found him drawing in the snow with the end of his staff, as one does. Pippin noticed something small and furry next to Holleran.
Why, if it isn't my good friend Zaspar,
Pippin said to the little bogey. Pippin, little Grunt, welcome, Holleran said with excitement. What brings you here? Little Grunt blurted out,
a girl wrote a letter and wants to know how old Santa Claus is.
Ah, yes, that age-old question, Holleran said, rubbing his chin, as all the wise people seem to do. He turned to Pippin. And I assume you've been tasked with finding the answer. Am I right? Of course, wise Holleran is right. That's exactly why we're here. Pippin nodded.
Yes, exactly. From my research, I can absolutely confirm that Saint Nick is older than swashbuckling pirates and even older than knights and fire-breathing dragons and... Oh, my goodness.
Pippin's face filled with amazement.
What if Santa is older than dinosaurs?
What? Santa Claus with Santa's claws? Pippin's imagination was swirling with thoughts of Santa Claus riding in a stone sleigh pulled by 8 tiny T-Rexes.
What did he give all those cave people as presents? Pippin wondered. Rocks? Fire? No. Santa would never give fire. A wheel? Yes, a wheel.
Well, I can tell you that Santa is not as old as the dinosaurs, Holleran said with a chuckle. He's not even as old as me, or my hat, for that matter. Okay, this guy then looks amazingly young for his age as well. Must be that whole freezing situation in the North Pole. Suddenly, Pippin heard the clock tower. It was chiming in the distance.
Oh, no,
he gasped.
I'm not going to make it back in time to answer Sophie's letter. It's almost Christmas.
Hey, Pippin, said a familiar voice. Want a ride? Pippin cheered.
Of course I do. What's better than snowboarding like a boss? Hitching a ride on an alicorn on a Yeti. Whoa!
Well, yeehaw and a jingle all the way. Pippin returned to the mailroom, back to where we began, and grabbed his ink and quill, thinking back on everything he had learned. And Pippin began to write his response to the little girl's most curious question. Okay, here we go. We're finally about to get our answer. And it is...
Dear Sophie, your question is tied to the very heart of Christmas magic. In my research, I found that imagining possibilities was as magical as discovering the real answer. Sort of like the joy of wondering what gift you might receive before you even unwrap it. I'm proud to tell you that Santa is older than pirates, older than knights, and even older than fire-breathing dragons, but he's not as old as dinosaurs, and he didn't deliver stone wheels. That is way more fun than telling you that Santa actually is probably, most likely, maybe 1,754-ish years old. Keep asking questions, Sophie, and I will too. What we discover could be truly magical. Love, Pippin Snow Day, Mailroom Scout Elf. So, he's 1,754 and a half? I told you he wasn't a million!
But it's far more interesting to imagine all the places Santa's been and all the things he's seen in his long and mysterious life.
Imagine what his birthday cake looks like, Red Bear! Great Bear! I bet it looks like a big bonfire! He must take like an hour to blow it out 1,754 candles! Maybe he uses a leaf blower!
What can you imagine? Ho, ho, ahoy!